Now, once again, Raymond Arroyo.
Welcome back to the world over. Donald Trump made headlines and dominated the news cycle with his surprise visit to Mexico and a stemwinder of an immigration speech this week. Meanwhile, Hillary Clinton continued her attacks on what she says is Trump's unsuitable temperament to be president of the United States. As the polls continue to narrow, how are the candidates' respective strategies helping or hurting their chances of winning in November? To discuss it all, I'm joined now by Fox News contributor, Washington Times columnist, and former Spanish media spokesman for George W. Bush, Mecedes Schlapp.
¿Cómo estás, Raymond? Great to be here.
I'll tell you later. I want to start with a bite from Trump. This was following his meeting with the president of Mexico, an unscheduled meeting that sort of came out of nowhere. This is what he had to say while in the president's presence. Watch.
We had a very substantive, direct, and constructive exchange of ideas over quite a period of time. I was straightforward in presenting my views about the impacts of current trade and immigration policies on the United States. Having a secure border is a sovereign right and mutually beneficial. We recognize and respect the right of either country to build a physical barrier or wall on any of its borders to stop the illegal movement of people, drugs, and weapons.
Why do you think, Mecedes, that President Nieto made this overture to Donald Trump?
Well, President Nieto did reach out to both campaigns, to the Clinton campaign and the Trump campaign. Trump jumped in. He thought this was an important opportunity to be able to be seen as presidential. And he effectively did that when he went over to Mexico. It was definitely what you would call a presidential moment. Now, that kind of shifted when he left Mexico, crossed the border.
And hit Arizona.
And went over to Arizona.
Okay, we'll talk about that in a moment. I got to stay on this moment for a second. Did you think it helped him, though, overall? The image of that? And the way he really took command of the press conference and everything.
I got to tell you, I think he shocked the liberal pundits like I have never seen. It was very substantive. They talked about the trade deal. They talked about the idea of securing the border, which, as we know, Mexico in the past has been very reluctant to help the United States in ensuring that there could be that secure border there.
This is what the president of Mexico had to say, and I found his comments probably the most fascinating of this entire encounter. Watch.
The conversation we had between Mr. Trump and myself was very open and constructive. The purpose was to get to know each other and learn about each other's views on the bilateral relationship. What we need is to have a comprehensive approach to the border whereby we can take into account the flows of undocumented people, illegal drugs, weapons, and cash at the same time. Many lives can be saved in both our countries if criminal organizations are curtailed from the money and guns that allow them to be in business today.
He seems to agree with Donald Trump here.
I know, isn't that amazing?
And, I mean, he talked about stopping the flow of drugs and illegal weapons.
Right, it's drug trafficking, human trafficking, renegotiating trade deal. It's talking about how do you deal with the illegal immigration process that's occurring right now. What I found interesting about this meeting is that it was the beginning of a dialogue. It was an opportunity for Donald Trump to show respect to a foreign leader, to one of our neighbors, to one of our most important neighbors as well. So I think it really gave Donald Trump this avenue to say, I can do this. I can stand alongside with the president of a foreign country, talk issues like we need to talk about, but at the same time, with America first in mind. How do we ensure that Americans are protected and they're the ones receiving the benefit?
There's a LifeZette story floating around today claiming that members of the Trump campaign are discussing an option to have the seizing of assets of these drug cartels and partner with Mexico to seize these assets, maybe remittances as well,
right,
and use that to pay for the wall. So it's kind of a back way to get Mexico to pay, for the wall. A good idea?
You know,
How does
I
it
find
play?
it to be very innovative. I think it's something that we haven't seen happen before. I know Donald Trump has talked about remittances and whether they would cut those back because so much money, I mean, you're talking billions of dollars, end up leaving the United States to go into the hands of Mexico. With that being said, Donald Trump, by sticking to this, okay, I met with the president leader, shook his hand, and then going back to Arizona and saying, Mexico will pay for it.
Whether they know it or not, they're paying for the wall.
Exactly, they're paying for the wall. Yeah. That really, I think, didn't settle very well with Presidente Nieto.
Okay. Now let's go to that Arizona rally. This was Donald Trump sort of returning to the default speech on immigration. Let's see how this played.
We will build a great wall along the southern border, and Mexico will pay for the wall. 100%. On day one, we will begin working on an impenetrable, physical, tall, powerful, beautiful southern border wall.
He also talked about a deportation force to remove people, particularly criminals. He focused on criminals. Right. How does this play? I mean, we've already seen members of his Hispanic Advisory Council saying bye-bye. They are resigning.
Well, his speech in Arizona played very well with his base supporters. I mean, you could tell the individuals that were there in the rally loved every moment of it.
But he already had those people.
Exactly, that's my point. So, but then you got to think about the moderate Republicans, especially the GOP Hispanics who have been on the fence, who have said, may go support him, not. Let's see how he plays out in these. So they all applauded the Mexico visit. And then all of a sudden we see the Arizona speech, and they really felt there was a sense in that community. They were very disappointed, especially from several members from the Hispanic Advisory Council, that they felt that they were not listened to.
They feel they were misled. They said they were misled.
Absolutely. And that has serious repercussions, especially in key states like Florida, for example. So I think for Donald Trump, let's see if he has very few opportunities left to try to broaden his support. And I got to tell you, he's doing this direct appeal into the African-American community. It's been, I think, successful in the sense that he's willing to take on the Democrats and say, look, it's been 40 years that they've been in leadership. Are you better now than you were before? And I think for Hispanics, he's going to have to make that direct appeal too. Although immigration is not the top issue for Hispanics, it's been the Republican Party. It's the economy, it's terrorism. It's still a sort of an emotional issue for them because so many of them are
but Mecedes,
from immigrant families.
He didn't change any policies. In fact, one could say he wasn't talking about deporting everybody who's here illegally. He said, we're going to start with criminals. In his first interview after the speech with Laura Ingraham, he said, we're softening. Let's take care of stabilizing the situation first.
Absolutely.
Then we'll figure out what to do with all the illegal people here.
But you know this, Raymond. It's about tone and messaging.
Right. Was it the tone that was the problem?
Absolutely. It was the fact that why not tell a positive story about the legal immigrants who contribute countless ways to helping make America great again? Why not tell those stories of those individuals? He was very compassionate to those angel moms who have lost their sons, daughters, spouses to criminal illegals. But it was the opportunity also to reach out to the Hispanic community and say, you know what? We are a country of immigrants. My mother was an immigrant. What you contribute to our nation is so important, and we want you here because you believe in the American principles. He missed that opportunity, and that is one of the main reasons why the GOP Hispanics have really been, they felt disappointed, they felt misled. And I think on the 11 million, I think they would have preferred that he would have left that door open. Like he said one time, I'm going to build the wall, but I'm going to have a beautiful door.
And this no doubt contributes to what the Washington Post this week called Donald Trump's Catholic problem. Down 25 points with Catholics, down with white Catholics as well. he's got to do something here or he loses.
That's
the
right.
election.
I mean, he's got his base. How do you broaden into getting those college-educated voters? How do you get the women voters? This is critical. And you're starting to see it in his speeches where he's talking about making sure children live in safe communities. He's talking about school choice. He's really reaching out to that suburban soccer mom. That would be me. But it's really a critical constituency because of the fact that Hillary Clinton is doing so well with those groups.
You bring up Hillary Clinton. Here she is speaking at the American Legion in Cincinnati on Wednesday. She had this to say about Trump's visit to Mexico. Watch.
You don't build a coalition by insulting our friends or acting like a loose cannon. You do it by putting in the slow, hard work of building relationships. And it certainly takes more than trying to make up for a year of insults and insinuations by dropping in on our neighbors for a few hours and then flying home again.
She has been out of the spotlight for the last few weeks. This is one of the few public appearances.
Right.
A smart move on her part, or not?
Well, she's also been hiding from the press for over 200 days.
Because of the email
Doesn't want to
scandal.
answer the questions from about the Clinton Foundation or the email scandal. For Hillary Clinton, her strategy till election day is making sure she paints Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump as dangerous, as not fit to be president. That is all she's talking about because she can't run on policy, she can't run on record because all she is doing is basically agreeing with a third-term Obama. And what we have seen is weak foreign policy, not a great economy, and she really is pushing forward a very stale, old policies from both sides.
She's still 7 points up in the aggregate. When you look
Right.
across these polls, she's still
In a
7
head-to-head
points
match.
up.
In a head-to-head
in a
match.
head-to-head match with Donald Trump. Here's the question. A strategist told me before this campaign started, if this campaign is about Donald Trump, he'll lose. If it's about Hillary Clinton, he'll win.
Right.
Is that what's happening? And
I
is
think
that
that's
the metric here?
I think that's very accurate. I think that it really is. When voters go into the voting booth, they're going to say, who do I picture being in the White House? Who's going to make these very important decisions? And that is why I think for Hillary Clinton, her strategy has been, Donald Trump cannot be trusted with the nuclear codes. I mean, she goes on and on. If you notice, Raymond, she really barely talks about policy.
Yeah.
And so I think for Donald Trump, he's trying to make the point that I want to talk about policies. I want to talk about how I'm going to fix things, find solutions for inner cities, for education. It is a very different approach on both of those campaigns. But she's going to want to run the clock out and see if she can stay ahead.
And this Detroit visit with Donald Trump meeting with the African American community in a church, a good move?
I think it's brilliant. I think Republicans have failed time and time again to make this direct appeal to the African American community. I think they've just assumed that they're going to be Democrats. Well, why not reach out? Go into these communities. Speaker Ryan, for example, released his policies on poverty. And you never really see Speaker Ryan going into these communities. This is what we need. We need more presence, more conversation with the African-American community to say, look, you really have a choice in this election.
Mecedes Schlapp, thank you for being here.
Always a
We'll see you
pleasure.
again soon.